Well, you know, I just did a film that comes out in September about Brazil when I took off. And the director and producer of the show asked me about my kids. And I just generically answered, how'd you say goodbye? And he asked me again, and I answered. He goes, no, no, no. And then he kept doing it. He actually broke me down where I started crying a couple of times during the film. And I was mad at him. You know, we broke. And, you know, I cursed him out. And he goes, relax. I just want the true of, like, your feelings.
What did he ask you?
How did I say goodbye?
Oh.
How was I okay with just leaving your kids like that? So, you know, you get emotional because you never really let yourself think about that. So one of the things that I try to understand with the mob is if you're a gangster or you're a street guy and you're single and you want to be on the street, I think it's a foolish move because there's too many ways to make money. But if you're a parent and you want to be a gangster, you got to look in the mirror and say, I really got to be a piece of shit to do what I'm doing, knowing I'm going to hurt my kids here. Because down the line, this is not rocket science. This is not like we don't know the history of families, what goes on when you're a gangster. Because when you're in the street and you're committing crimes, your whole life is dedicated to surviving in the street, not getting killed, not going to jail. And if you're doing anything serious, you're going to go to jail. So you're just lying to yourself. And you're bringing your kids up in an environment, even if you're not talking in front of them, they're seeing it. So when they see this, they're developing their life mimicking your shitty actions. And then somewhere down the line, you got to say to yourself, you know, and it took me a long time to call myself names and say, you know, I'm really a piece of shit to do what I'm doing because everything I'm doing is narcissistic. It's only about yourself. And, you know, you're giving them money, financial, like you're running the throne, but it's only money. It's not what you, even though you love them and you're kissing them, but you're leaving the house possibly to go to jail. You're leaving the house to get killed. You're leaving the house to commit crimes, maybe when they're at a baseball game or at a college or, you know, event, which I wasn't around for at all because I did too many years to be at their kindergarten or different things that they had. So you got to start saying to yourself as a street guy, what am I thinking? What's my choices? I'm making these choices, and my kids, no matter what I say, are secondary, and I'm first, because you're swearing loyalty to the street. And if you're swearing loyalty to the street, that means the kids are going to come second. And then you lie to yourself. It's a psychological game where you're saying, oh, but I'm giving them everything I had. And if you ask your kids, they'd rather not have the money. They don't want the cars. They don't want the toys. They don't want the extra pairs of sneakers. But I didn't have those things. So I thought that's what was a good thing to be a good father. And then I convinced myself that all this stuff is more important than being around for your son.
So at what point did you realize that you're just trying to convince yourself and that it's not, that what you're, you know, just giving them, throwing money at them or throwing money at the issue is not the way to win over, I guess, your kid's heart in a sense?
I think because, you know, I went through, my relationships was so bad because you're never around. Mm. And, you know, it's how you going to have normalcy? Going to dinner once a week on a Saturday night. I think it was our Saturdays were the nights we stay with our family. The rest of the time we're with each other day and night, all the guys. And we're moving drugs and we're killing and we're shooting. And every time you go home and you just shot somebody or robbed somebody, how's your head going to be with your child, really? You're halfway there because you're thinking about what just happened. You know, are you going to go to jail? You're going to get caught? Are they coming to, you know, is there going to be repercussions from it? Or the police going to knock on the door? You can't possibly mentally be with your kids if you're doing all these criminal activity. It just can't. It just doesn't work. And it's a lie. So everything you're doing with your children's a lie. And I think I started to realize it every time I got locked up and you're not coming home. And I'm not talking about, it doesn't even have to be a long bid. It's just you get locked up for 2 weeks and you get a bail. You're gone. How do you explain that to your kids? The kids think that you don't love them because you're not around. So even though they're not saying it because they can't really, they're too young to articulate what the problem is, but they're thinking they're missing something. And the more they're missing something, the more anger they get towards you.
For you, do you feel like when you first had your kids, did you think that it could ever end up in that way that it did? Or did you imagine, like, did you think about when you first had your kids that, I'm going to go to jail, I probably won't see them? Or is that not really a thought at all?
You try to, you're going to go to jail. But you're not thinking about the kids, you're thinking about yourself, how you're going to handle it. Like, I'm taking them to Chuck E. Cheese, I'm taking them to Great Adventure, I'm taking them to Florida, I'm taking them to, all the, what's that, Hershey Park. I'm taking them to all the parks and events. I spend a lot of time with them when I'm free. When I'm free, that's the big word, when I'm free. So I'm giving them dosage of sugar, like, I'm taking them to the parks and this, and then they don't see me for 6 days of the week, because not like a normal working father that is a lawyer or something, because my life might end that day, or my life might end in prison that day. And I start convincing myself that I'm this great father because I'm buying them everything, I'm taking them to all these parks. But at the same time, they're starting, as they're getting older, I'm coming in and out of jail, they're verbally abusing me. I'm not just me.
Like, what kind of things
my
are they
friends.
saying?
Oh, everything. Calling you a piece of shit, cursing you out, challenging you physically as they're getting older.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not the only father like this. So when those guys that are out there, they're in the street, you guys all know what I'm talking about, or women that are in the street. Because kids get resentment and anger, and they didn't know how to express it as younger kids. As they get older, the resentment comes out. And then you find yourself in jail cursing your own kids out. And every guys want to be honest. They got to be honest, because you curse your own kids out. Fuck them, blah, 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 because you're still into that narcissistic belief that this is about you only. Because I sacrifice my life for them. I buy them everything. I take them trips. I give them money. I get them, trips in a Hummer, like, stretch limousines for their birthdays. And that's bullshit. That's just quick fixes of not being a father. Or I'm doing homework with them from jail, and I'm calling up and I'm talking to the principal, and they're putting me on the phone when my kids are in grammar school. That's to convince ourselves that we're being good dads. That ain't what our kids want. Our kids want us home. They want us to sit on the couch and watch a cartoon with them, and not, for an hour and then see you later again and not really be there. This is the problem.
Assuming you still, had the life that you had and were in the mafia, all that stuff, how would you have been a different father? Or the two?
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
You can't be a different father and be in the street. Yeah. It doesn't work. The only way you can be a father to your children is to be a father. And that means, picking them up, bringing them to school in the morning before you go to work, a regular job, so your son sees, constructive living. He sees that my dad gets up, makes breakfast with my mom, and for the single mother, same thing, or single fathers that don't have, either way, you take your child to school, you go to work, and they see that there's structure in their life. So it's not what you're saying, it's what they're watching. And then after school, whether they go to daycare until you get out of job, and then you pick your kid up and you have a normal family life and you sit down. The problem is not just with the street guys, we don't have any of that. So everything that we're teaching our kids is dysfunctional from day one. Mm-hmm. It took me a lot of therapy to go through this, to understand from my therapist. And, and such shitty things that we do. We just have crazy lives. I mean, just, with all the things I said earlier, whether it's, serious murders and shootings and armed robberies and drug dealing and gambling, and then our sex parties and fucking, we do everything we do with drugs all over the table, girls and guys everywhere. This is not normal living. It's fast line. It sounds exciting, right? It's the Hollywood, everybody's, in rooms and, partying up and champagne and traveling, and, we're on planes everywhere, jet setting. Sounds real cool, right? But it ain't. At the end of the day, we're all suffering. And then we make our family suffer. And I don't know any street guys, and if they convince their kids to believe in this, they got to have rocks in their head. And maybe that's why everybody hates me so much, because I talk so honestly about all this stuff.
What was the most heartbreaking conversation you ever had with one of your kids?
Well, there was a couple. I mean, when I first went to prison and I decided that I was going to cooperate, they called me a rats. They called you? Oh, yeah.
And it's your the sons?
My youngest son, out of all the kids, speaking honestly, has never done that. And I mean, my other kids, the other three, yeah, they all did. Day and night cursed me out. Day and night threatened me. Wanted to fight me physically. So
knowing you're gonna go to jail. So like
knowing.
So at that point, just set up the scene for people. It's like, so you know you're going to jail, and you're telling them, and then that's
Either go, you can't win with your kids, because if you go to jail, they're cursing you out because you left. You know, the first time when they're younger, they don't do it. As they're getting older, then they start doing it. And then when I ask them, you know, come visit me, they're cursing me out because they're with their friends. They got sports, they got jobs. And then they start cursing you like, fuck you, I didn't tell you to be a fucking idiot and go on the street. And they start firing at you. And then they apologize. And then they're young still too. And they're crying because they feel guilty. And then they make up with you. And then they're mad at you again. Then they won't write you a letter. And then you ask them, how come you never write daddy? And then they don't answer. And then their mothers are mad because so they're hearing their mother suffering, and then, the money's running out because I don't care how rich you are. You're losing money, and then you're getting court cases, and the government's taking your money, and then your partners are all stealing your money. So, it's the slew of all this stuff takes effect on your kids. And then as your kids get older, and I come back home again, and I try to discipline them or try to advise them, they're stepping up in my face to fight me. So now you're frustrated. You're thinking about, and then I'm yelling at them, I never did this to my fucking father. You're doing it to me. Mm. But my father was never a gangster. My father might have been broke. He might have been a gambler. He might have been that. But he was around every day. I wasn't. So then you'd hear my father would yell at me and said, you did this. Stop fucking pointing at everybody else. So, which he was right. I'm very close to my father. So when people are so angry and people are, and these people are talking nonsense that didn't live the life, they're not in the cells like a lot of my friends today. A lot of my friends that are home, either active or not active, they all got problems with their kids. Mm-hmm. All. I mean, I really don't know any that don't. And then maybe they the ones that said they don't, I don't think they're being honest, because we left them their whole lives. And, you can't get all that time back again. I try to get it back. So when people are attacking me, I really don't care what they say, because all I want to do is have my kids.
Could you pinpoint though, like if you had to think in your entire life, like the one moment that really that you could think about right now and start bawling your eyes out, that like really triggered some kind of extreme sadness from that time, of like the moment that you felt that it really hit you like, holy, I fucked up?
I think when their mother was sick, when I was in jail, she got cancer. So the two kids, the two boys. So when she was sick with cancer, they didn't know if she was going to live. They were scared. Right. I wasn't around. And that had to be the hardest time in their lives. Right. And my son, my younger son, was just born. He's being raised by his grandparents. So he didn't have as much anger for some reason. I'm not sure why. But my other kids were a little older. And then you got to remember something else. I raised all four kids together. They had different moms. And when I went to jail, they didn't get to spend time with each other no more. Mm. So that separated them too. So there was more anger, there was more frustration, because they couldn't come see each other. Two lived in Jersey, two lived in New York. And now they lose each other also. So there goes that part too. And my younger son was a lot younger. So the other three were raised together. So there's all kinds of mental issues going on, anger issues, frustration issues. They can't articulate it, they're too young. And as they're getting older, and they're cursing me out, and then they're afraid of my situation. When I'm active, they're worried about people bothering them. When I'm not active, they're getting threats from, they're not involved in my life. So when people are talking about this life and putting their 2 cents in, when they have no idea the suffering that goes on with all the families, I'm not talking about, my enemies, or my friends, or people that we killed, or the people that killed our friends and family. Conjunctionally, all of us, I said the word wrong twice, but we're talking about all of us. They're suffering the same stuff. They just don't want to be honest about it, because there's so many of my friends who kids don't talk to them at all anymore. I'm lucky that I developed a relationship with my kids. And it was a lot of pain and suffering, a lot of crying, a lot of threatening, a lot of like, fuck you, I don't want to bother with you guys either. So, and then you feel the guilt and you're like, I'm talking about my own kid here. What's wrong with me? But the therapy of all this, starts to, kick in. And now they're young men and adults. And then I got one son who's in jail. And, so I got to put that on me. So I still suffer that stuff. And he spent years now in prisons because of me. And if he was, it's because of you, he made his own choices. No, he didn't make his own choices because he was a good kid. And he's got his own issues because of me not being there, because of the separation from his brothers, because of the relationship he didn't have with his mother, because of my relationship I didn't have with her. And, it's a ripple effect that nobody talks about. Everybody wants to talk this tough guy nonsense bullshit. It's bullshit. So when people want to tell me about when you grow up as a kid and you play cops and robbers, in the stores, everybody wants to be the policeman. As you get older, you make that choice to be the criminal on the wrong side. But as a kid, instinctively, I think everybody makes the right choice. They want to be the policeman with the whistle and the badge, right? And be the good guy. And that's really the right choice. And people don't like that I say that. So people like, we had Dan and Mike on the other day. I didn't contradict a lot of things they say. I didn't agree with some of the things. We're all friends. And it's a talking thing to help the communities. We don't care how we get there. But I'm personally a police advocate. Everybody knows that. So, because I say the same thing, I don't like segregation. I like integration. So I don't believe Mike means well and he believes in what he believes. I think by integrating all these neighborhoods, right, you're teaching everybody things that they're not used to. When people don't know about a religion, they might not like that religion because they're afraid of it. But when they know each other intimately, it becomes normal. And I think that's what I'm trying to teach my kids, normalcy.
For you, with your kids, how did you, and you talk a lot about therapy. What was maybe the most important conversation, if there is one, that you had when you got out of jail, when you were trying to repair those relationships?
I told my kids the truth about everything. I talked to them about.
So they didn't know the truth about everything before?
People always act like they're tough. You ever see somebody's family in the street anyway, I'll give you the street people. The girlfriend, the wife, or whatever, the kids, they always think their father's the toughest guy. Everybody does, because it's an image of the daddy. The daddy's the strong, the daddy's there, daddy's strong, feel my muscle, all that nonsense, right? But then I learned from my therapist, the strength comes from your mind. It doesn't come from the outer stuff. So all the weaknesses and insecurities, it has to come from your mind and your heart. And I started trying to redevelop and teach my kids this. When I didn't teach them this their whole lives. I try to teach them that, standing alone is the stronger guy. It's easier when there's a whole group. Sure, they feed off each other because they're weak. But if you could stand on your own, you're strong. So when everybody's attacking you, most people want to fire back, right? And over the years, sometimes I fire back and I'm learning not to. I'm learning stop being so insecure. Just be yourself. Do you. Stop firing back. Let them talk. These are the weak people, and that's back to bullies and stuff. So when I try to teach my kids, listen, I made so many mistakes. There's nothing I can say to take that back. And I tell them about the violence. And I tell them about the struggle I have of trying to, redevelop myself. And, I tell them about some of the low-life things I did. I'm not one of those guys that don't do that. I do tell them. And I love when people say, well, you never hit your ex-wife. Yes, I did. When they keep saying, yes, I did. Yeah, yes, I did. Did you get beat up? Yes, I did. I got to try to teach them that all this, did I do drugs at points? Yes, I did. Was I drug addict? No. But yes, I did use drugs. I tried drugs. Yes, I drank too much sometimes. You got to be honest. Yes, we did some low-life, shitty things. I hate to say I did what I did. And the only way you're going to make kids listen to you is to be honest with them and stop trying to bullshit them. So, at one time, even though I didn't mean to bullshit my kids, I guess I was bullshitting them. You got to be able to teach them the truth now and tell them, listen, you guys are young adults. You just can understand it now.
Were you ever insecure about, or are you ever insecure about the father that you are?
Yeah, you always want to be a better dad than you were the day before. I mean, one of the biggest things as a father is you're trying to be honest with them and you're trying to protect them at the same time. So I'm pretty honest with them. So, when people say different things, I think the more honest you are is the better for them. Because then when you try to pretend and lie because you're scared of your own ego and it's not about humility, you gotta learn humility. And there's a lot of things that, that I did that I'm not proud of. But I got to tell them the truth because as, you make a lot of mistakes. You get, when I was in jail, before I was in jail until today, you get depressed. And I try to tell, I've talked on shows about being depressed. Every day you can't just go out there and smiling all day because that's a phony, right? You get depressed, you do stupid things, you make bad choices, you regret them. That's life. I don't know too many people that didn't make bad choices. It's just part of, life. But with all my mistakes, you're trying to teach them not to have them. And you're trying to be a good father to them no matter what. They're always going to be your babies. I don't care how old they are. So, and you try to be that guy. And I talk with a lot of guys that they know who I'm talking, and I shout them out a lot. And, one's an ex-cop, another guy was a cop, another guy's involved in MMA fighting. And all these guys, he's a teacher, and one teaches his kids a lot of, to humor and, exercise and discipline, and in a good way. And I shout these guys out because they bring me strength to go back, and that's what I'm trying to teach other kids. But at the same time, like the guys that call us in on Patreon, they're also helping me while I help them. And I've said this over and over when I go to colleges or universities or juvenile centers or second chance programs. I tell the kids I'm there because they're helping me as much as I'm helping them. It's not a one-way street like, oh, I'm this guy. No, I'm not. You guys are helping me the same way. And I'm just trying to be the more honest guy than I used to be.
Are there ever moments that you're still embarrassed?
I don't think anybody can embarrass me. I think a lot of times these people try to embarrass me, the trolls and different people. I'm pretty straightforward about everything. So, when they talk about anything, I mean, I don't care what it is, my past as a gangster, as a criminal, if it was something sexual, I don't care. I just say, listen, it is what it is. I mean, that's it. I'm going to be me. This is 2021. I mean, I had so many things thrown at me over the years, and I just come out and I say, yeah, well, that's what it is. You don't like it, I guess don't talk to me. You see something that you believe, then don't bother with me. But I try to be as honest as possible. This ain't, there's so many things that people talk about that they got so many hang-ups, and if it doesn't involve them personally, then what are you worried about it? Mind your business. It's just, that's part of life. We all make our choices, some good, some bad, some mistakes, and we move on. But I don't think anybody can really embarrass me. I'm not that guy. I'm a pretty secure guy these days. So I think that when something comes up, I'll deal with it and I talk straight out and I'll just get out and I'll joke because I learned a lot of humility. That's one thing I did before. I had a big ego and I didn't learn any kind of humility. I never wanted to blame myself. Always pointing somewhere else. And, my lifestyle, nobody ever hear me blame my father. He introduced me as a kid around it, but I had choices other ways. Just like a lot of kids were introduced to it and they did the right thing. So it's nobody's fault, it's my own.
I'm curious, when you're in jail and you're hearing about, I guess, like things that are going on with your family or your ex-wife gets sick or whatever it might be, what's that like for you mentally when you're sitting in jail, knowing that the situation your family's in, what's going on in your mind? I mean, does it obviously, I imagine, you fall into some kind of state of depression or some kind of extreme sadness, but what goes on in your mind, when you're basically helpless? I mean, you can't really do anything.
Well, when you're in those situations, I was a hypochondriac for a lot of years. And I think they joked about it in the Forbes magazine, one of the agents. I mean, I was always, actually now I've been sick with different things, but before, if I had a little something, I was dying. And that's because you don't want to deal with what's bothering you mentally. And then you get extreme depressions. A lot of my friends kill themselves. And then, for the people, and when I look at the camera, I'm not ashamed of saying I cried. Like somebody said, oh, you were crying at sentencing. Fuck yeah, I cried at sentencing. It's my life. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say these things. Like, that's one of the things, like, some people that are insecure. I'm an emotional guy. I admit it. So, did you cry in jail? Of course. Who doesn't? There's a lot of people. What I don't like is when guys try to act like tough guys and then they started crying, then they made fun of me. Oh, you didn't want to, you wanted to be a tough guy, and you're talking and say, but it happens to all of us. And, there's guys that used to abuse guys that went back with their wife if their wife cheated on them. And then when they cheated on the wives had big mouths too. And then when it came to them, all their pride was gone and they wanted to go back to their wife or a husband. So just don't judge on people because you never know what's going on in your house, in your life.
I think it's interesting because obviously I've gotten to know you incredibly well and we're very close. And I know you the way I know you. But I always think it's interesting when I see people, say whatever they say. And granted, I really don't read or pay much attention to it. But I guess for you, it's like, what do you hope people kind of like think of you?
I don't care. I only care about the kids that I can help.
But what do you?
Or the guys I help. I really don't care. You can't make everybody like you.
Or maybe more the question is, what do you kind of hope that people could know about you that they might not from just watching our show? Because I mean, you tell it as it is and all that, but it's also like there's a lot of different sides of you that like you don't have the chance to show on camera. What is something maybe you kind of wish that people knew about you that they might not be able to from not sitting and talking to you?
I think the suffering. I mean, that's the most I've suffered in my life more than probably most people around. That's why I relate so much, and I'm always talking about inner city kids because that's how I grew up. I grew up without sneakers that I had to tape them with black tape. I had to iron my pants with patches because they had holes in them. And I didn't have wallpaper on my walls in my house. I mean, that was just the way we grew up. So I grew up with nothing, so I can relate to the inner city kids. I can relate to the suffering of the violence that we seen in the street. That we went on the street very young, at young ages, selling drugs and watching murders at young ages and watching people get slaughtered and watching, just everything about us. Going to get hookers at young ages, doing all crazy things for money. And, it just, I suffered. And that's not to all feel bad for me. I talk about priests that helped me in my life. But then I talk about priests that molested me. So, but I'm very honest. I suffered. And, and I don't hate priests. The one that hurt us as kids, yeah, I hate him. But the ones that helped us, I love them. There's ones that saved my life when I was really depressed. So when I'm not that guy that blames a whole group. I don't blame the whole, like people talk the Catholic Church. Can't blame everybody. There's 90% of them are good. I said, so, and do I believe in God? Yeah, and I believe God put me in this position, strengthened me because I didn't have this strength before. Now I'm honest enough to sit here on camera and tell people this stuff. Before I would never did this. Mm-hmm. I would have been like, I'd be so embarrassed. I'd be so ashamed. I'd be so judgmental with myself, So now I'm not. People ask me that all, different things, and you embarrassed at anything? No, nothing. I says actually nothing. Nobody can embarrass me about anything. So I'm good with my choices in life. So. That's why I'm always advocating for different groups. When people say to me, well, you're advocating for domestic violence, but you hit your wife. Yeah, I shouldn't have hit her. I did hit her. But does that mean every other woman should get beat up now? Because I shouldn't speak up for them? Well, when they tell me about one of my friends is gay and I go to listen, I'll sit in this room naked with him. I don't care. People don't understand my personality. I'm not that guy that gives a shit. I tell everybody be themselves now because I never used to be myself. I used to always, had this front. Everybody says, oh, he's the toughest guy. No, I'm not. I got beat up plenty of times. You guys know me better than anybody. I say a lot of things. We go out to the Fire Island. We went to the parade, to the gay parade. Actually, the only time I did talk bad about gays is, and I made that comment too, and people like it or don't like it, is how I talk. When they didn't want to let police officers, walk in the parade. After all the years of prejudice about their, whatever they do with their lives, How can you possibly prejudice somebody wearing a uniform? I says, now, if you do it with one uniform, how about next year they say nurses aren't allowed to walk in the parade? You know, I'm against that. I says, yeah, I just think that everybody's have individual rights, and that's that. So, you know.
Do you feel like there's two different, in different chapters of your life? Is that how you kind of see it?
No, I just see myself as evolving, growing, you know, because of all the therapy, because of, you know, the people that, you know, been there for me, like my, you know, therapist, Mickey Stratford, that I always talk about, or, you know, a guy like Dave Gentile or some other guys. And, you know, some are, listen, I'm very straight the way I talk. Law enforcement guys, right? Most of these guys that help me are gentlemen. And I'm not ashamed. I don't care who calls me a rat because I say that. But they're not double treacherous bastards trying to shoot me in the back of the head like the street guys. So, you know, I'm an adult with you know, to help kids. To help kids, either I push them this way or push them that way. I'll push them towards the law enforcement and the right way of living. And the people that are against that, I'm sorry. I says, if that's how you feel, you want to push your kids to the street or hate cops, then go ahead. I says, but it's not conducive to a good life, you know. And as an adult, we owe it to the next generation to teach them the right thing. Me, the biggest thing I don't like now is, and I try to talk about, is open conversation. You can disagree with me, but let's have an open conversation. You can agree with me or disagree, but not to shut each other down. Shutting each other down is not the way we're taught in this country.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me also, what's kind of interesting is, you know, I was just thinking even myself, like, do I think that you're a different person or an evolution? I think you're probably definitely an evolution. You know, I mean, you're obviously always going to have the tendencies of like you're still that person. You're still, you know, John you'll always be that person. I do think that, you know, for people wondering out there, and I do get these questions sometimes of, you know, what it's like, you know, what the experiences have been like working with you. I think it's, it's definitely different chapters. You know what I mean? Like, if I would have never worked with the person that you were probably when you were 25, you know, and that's just because on so many levels I would just disagree with that person. But I do think that, you know, the person that you are today it motivates, I guess, a lot of people. I think the people that support the show, because they see that you can take such a 180 turn. And, you know, I guess I imagine that when you were 25, it was probably unimaginable for you to think that you would have the life that you have today, be completely removed, probably even be out of jail, be alive, being able to talk to people. So, you know, I think it's a pretty, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, you'll say, you know, like, what a life. But at the end of the day, I do think also that it's, you know, that thank God that you did change the way you did. And, you know, whether it be your interactions with your kids, the way you treat women, the way you treat family, the way you treat yourself, you know, it is 100% a change. And people, you know, people say this or that, but, you know, I've gotten to know you in a very different way. And I mean, it is an evolution in a sense, you know.
You know, I got nicknamed through my family, Go-Go, because I can't sit still, Free Bird, you know, because I'm always on the move. And, you know, I talk about one of my lawyers I talked yesterday, Tim Fitzgerald. I haven't talked about him recently on shows and stuff. But years ago, I would maybe forget about people a little faster. You know, like, he's one of the nicest, him and my other lawyer, Carolyn Teshi, these people are so compassionate. And over the years, you know, you start to forget, because I was involved with such shitty people in my life that you forget all the good people. So now I learned to appreciate those good people, because what they did for me when my life was done, they stood with me. Not so much legally, because it wasn't, I mean, they did as much as they could for me legally as my advocates, but there was only so much they could do, but they stood morally for me. You know, they were there for me when I had nobody around. So you got to start saying to yourself, these are the people that you want to advocate for now the other way. Because I grew up with all the garbage guys, all the guys that turn themselves, and not just me, all these guys that are involved in the street, if they say something different, they're either lying to themselves, and they don't mean to lie to people in public, but they're lying to themselves, so they got to lie to people in the public, or they're just full of shit. Because what I'm saying is so honest
Right.
about, if you want a good life, then you got to make good decisions. And sometimes we make bad decisions. I can't take back my bad decisions. I might have made a bad decision yesterday, or somebody say, look, he wrote this. He's so full of shit, because we're on the show now. Or he said this bad word, or he said the N word, or he said this about, this Jew, this. I know they're going to do that. This is what people do. They want to hate and take the negative. But, they don't want to take the positive. And for whatever reason, I can't change the negative people. I can only do my own life, do me as a positive life, and, and my friendships.
Well, I think a lot of, yeah, to your point, a lot of people want to make things up and paint this and that and change this and that. But I think ultimately, too, it's like, I think when you're in a bad situation, I could imagine, I mean, better than I do. But one bad thing is going to lead to another, right? If you're stressed, about this, you might take it out on X person, or you might, hurt someone you didn't ever think you would hurt. I mean, it's like, it's when tensions are high, I mean, no one thinks rationally, and when tensions are high every single day of your life for 10, 15, 20 years, I mean, no wonder you have the life that you have.
Well, you got to say, like, when someone's calling me a coward or a punk or a whatever word, he never did this. And okay, so if you said yes to him, all right, I'm sorry, I none of those things. What do they get out of that? They're only trying to empower themselves, right? Who cares? You got to laugh at it. But I'm going to tell you one thing. See these black curtains? If we close them around here, right? Close them off, turn the lights off, and stay in this darkness, right? Day in and day out for years, like some of my friends, like my friend Benny is now in solitary confinement. Do you know the depression, the crying some guys do? There's days when you cry day and night. People don't want to tell you that. I don't care who they are. But to live like that animal, so down and depressed in the darkness, and you go through your day and you wake up and this darkness never goes away. You live in, that's the same darkness. If you come out to the street and you behave wrong, you got that same darkness again. I don't want to live in that darkness anymore. Mm-hmm. I did that too much in my life. So that's why, as well as I joke a lot. And everybody's like, maybe not so much on camera like I do, but I joke a lot. And everybody's like, I can't believe this guy's always joking. Like when we did the show with Chris Chaos, I joked as much as, he's a funny guy. I can't joke as good as him, but it was really a good time because he's such a fun guy to hang out with. He brings what everybody wants, laughter, which brings humility to you and brings happiness. But who wants to close these curtains and close these lights and live like that in this misery world? People challenging me to fight every day. I did that. It didn't work. You can't, what do you want to do? Beat me up? And what's that going to get you? What happens after that? What is it going to get me? If I go after somebody, hurt one more guy, if I'm too stupid to learn that lesson, I remember going back when I got sentenced from Judge Bucklew. She said at that sentencing, I don't know if I should let him go or when I should let him go because I'm scared he's going to do something again. And as a judge, how do I sit here and know that I just let out a guy that committed violence is going to go out and commit some more violence? And I swore that I wasn't going to do it, right? And I've been fighting myself. It's not an easy thing to change your life, that. And I think about what she said, and it always resonates, that I'm going to prove her so wrong that I'm never going to do that again. And I know everybody's edging me because all the haters want to see you do something. Or they want to test you. Well, what are they testing? To see if they're tougher than you? I don't really know what they're testing. If I'm just a nobody, low life, this and that, what do you care if I'm tough or not?
Well, I think that they want to test, they see you having some success and you saying these things, so they want to test your limits. They know that you still, technically speaking, have it in you. You know what I mean? Like if someone came at your daughter or your son, that's a whole other ball game. Like the same way that any average human being would be the same thing. But they know that.
Did your mom ever break a law in her life?
Yeah.
Oh, she
What?
did? No, I mean something serious. Did she
Oh
break
no,
her
no,
line?
no, no.
Okay, so for the people
No,
listening,
my mom's a nice little
yeah,
friend.
yes.
But like, yeah, like
What I'm saying, if someone tried to hurt you and she's driving, and I did this at a PTA meeting, I was talking to parents, and someone tried to hurt you physically. I mean, to take your life or hurt you physically, and she has a car, of course she's going to try to run them over and protect you. Any father or mother will do that.
right.
You know, so that's in any of us. The difference is,
The headline is
the
different
difference
when
is,
you would.
I'm not looking for no more trouble with anybody. You know, I'm just looking to advocate for what I advocate for. You know, do you leave my kids out of this?
Yeah.
They got nothing to do with this life. And, you know, unfortunately for the people that hate me to that extent, want to try to take my life, and I guess try to take it. But that has nothing to do with my children. So did I lose my temper before when guys are talking about my kids? Of course I did. Anybody would do that. I mean, I don't even want to do that because it doesn't make sense. What am I yelling about? That's not going to help nothing or hurt anything. The only thing is, if somebody does do something like that, any father or any mother will react. So, you know, when people say to me, "Oh, am I completely changed, man?" I'm trying to be. I mean, you know, I'm trying to be, and I'm trying to be as honest as possible. But I think I'm pretty secure these days. I'm not like I used to be.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, it's funny because people always ask me like, "Do you feel safe?" Like, I'm like, "Look." I'm like 100%, genuinely. And I tell people, I'm like, for you, the only thing that you would ever act is if it came to your family. I think, like, I don't think anybody could say or do anything genuine. I genuinely believe this, that would make you act, that would not make you just use your words, unless it came to just your family.
Yeah, I mean, but that's anybody in life. I think anybody will protect their family. I don't think it's just me. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
you know, I've done a lot that people know, you know, whatever, or they don't want to say I did, but it doesn't matter. That's not important. But anybody will protect their family. Any human being, male, female, brother, sister, with each other, they protect each other. And the thing is, for me, is my whole being now of my life is to be successful again, to do it the right way, help my kids, and not to be the guy I used to be. The guy I used to be was, you know, people go, "Oh, this guy thinks this and that," when I'm talking against the street. And no one talks against themselves more than I do, I think. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm really honest about, you know, how shitty I was before. So, you know, and I got to deal with that, and I deal with it through these, you know, shows I do, or talking to kids that I do, or any of this. And then people say, "Well, you know, you're selling bats." First off, like I always say, it's a legitimate living I do, and some of that money we donate to organizations, and we're doing something productive, not negative. And really, that's my biggest answer to anybody. We all got to make a living somehow. And, you know, so for me, it's just another way to do something positive, and also something we enjoy. And it's positive. It's not negative. I'm not hating on other people. So
I agree with all of that. I think that's it, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, a nice little therapy
Hello to
session
my
with John.
kids, and when I come home, don't beat me up. And that's the last thing. I got to be nice to them anyway because they can beat me up now. So.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, they'll kill me.